Let's start the show. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FV Show, we are going to continue our All 32 NFL team preview series by taking a look at our final division, the AFC West, but in particular, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Before we get started today, a few quick things from you. As always, first off, smash that subscribe button, power running back style, like Derrick Henry going up the middle. Also, hit that like button down below, like an open receiver downfield, Patrick Mahomes style, unironically. And last but not least, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, and the website is ffvulture.com. I really need to update that site just a little bit. Maybe I'll get around to that today, but we do have a lot to talk about. I'm recording this video today. I got to do the Chargers today, and I also want to start recording and just start getting together my Dynasty Mega Special that is going to drop on September 1st. But let's just go right in, right? We're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that has so many different weapons and so many different pieces on it. And where else do we start besides the greatest quarterback I have ever seen, and that is Patrick Mahomes. We're going to keep this one really short. Honestly, the only thing that I should say is Patrick Mahomes, good at football. All right, next. But we're not going to do that. Patrick Mahomes, 2019, you know the story. 10 weeks as a quarterback 1, 4 weeks as a quarterback 2. He missed 2 games due to an injury. Even that game where he only played, it was like the first half before he got injured versus the Broncos. That was a Thursday night game. He still finished as a QB2. And Patrick Mahomes, man, he's just so good. The talent around him is incredible, and he's going to be amazing for fantasy this season. There's nothing I need to talk about here. There is literally nothing I can say that you, the viewer, probably don't already know. So I guess the thing is, if you're new to fantasy, Patrick Mahomes, this is now his 4th year in the NFL. The first year he sat out. The second year he was an absolute unstoppable machine. He threw for 55 touchdowns. And last season he led his team to a Super Bowl victory. And he's like 25 years old. And he also owns part of the Kansas City Royals now as well, and got a monster $500 million contract extension this offseason. So Patrick Mahomes, his current ADP is in the second round at quarterback 1. I'm ranked as quarterback 2. I still have Lamar ahead just because I personally believe that Lamar Jackson is a cheat code due to his rushing ability. Even though Mahomes is going to throw 4 more yardage, just that upside, the rushing upside with Lamar just has him in above Mahomes for me. They're both in that same tier, just those top 2 guys though. And again, the question just becomes, are you willing to take a quarterback that early in your draft? The one thing that I did say with Lamar, so naturally this will also have to apply to Mahomes, is that I do feel like if you are going to go early quarterback, this might be the year to do it, just because we don't know what the future may hold. And so because we're looking for guys with consistency and guys who we know we're going to get guaranteed production from, like, this could be the route that you could take. I know I've done a few mock drafts with a few of my friends, and we've experimented with the strategy of taking Mahomes or Lamar early, and what does our team look like then, especially just because also with this season, the running back pool is deeper than it's been, and the wide receiver pool is still incredibly deep throughout the first 7 rounds or so. So you do have a lot of flexibility with these early rounds to kind of try some different strategies out, but this is why we mock draft, so that we can see the best strategies and the fits and the routes that we want to take during our drafts. Patrick Mahomes, though, good quarterback, great quarterback, the best quarterback I have ever seen. I love how he just escalated that all the way through. And he's going to be great for fantasy once again. There's really not a whole lot to say here. So we're going to move on to a player that I have moved so far up my draft board, it is ridiculous. And that is Clyde Edwards Helaire, rookie running back out of LSU. The Chiefs spent their first-round draft pick on him. And they went to Mahomes before the draft. They said, hey, who do you want us to take? And he said Clyde Edwards Helaire. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal is, first off, number one, Damian Williams, the other Kansas City Chiefs running back, opted out of the season due to COVID concerns. And they already had Clyde, and the question really became, is when does Clyde take over this backfield? When is it his backfield? They spent the first round pick on him, so they're obviously going to utilize him. Damian Williams, he's a fine running back, but he is nothing spectacular. And so when were we going to see this shift in the Kansas City backfield to Clyde Edwards Helaire? And the question, and I guess the answer, is immediately. And so originally, when I was doing my rankings, I had Clyde at running back 18 or so because I was expecting like a week 6 transition into the offense for him. But now that we get a full 16-game season of him in this high-powered offense that is going to average 30 points per game, we know the history of Andy Reid running backs. Hint, they always finish very, very well. I believe that they typically finish inside the top 18, if my memory serves correct. Kareem Hunt just a few years ago finished as running back 3 in this offense as a rookie. And Clyde Edwards Helaire has the opportunity to go along the exact same plane. So let's talk about CEH and what he did at LSU last season. He had 215 carries. The big story here is 55 receptions. That's just a monster number, especially for PPR formats. Like, if he gets anywhere close to that, he is going to absolutely finish as a top 10 running back. 1,400 rushing yards, 453 receiving yards, and 17 touchdowns. So he can pretty much do it in all 3 facets of the game, on the ground, through the air, and in the red zone as well. His measurables, he's only 5'7", 207 pounds, and runs a 4.6. The player that I compared him to is Maurice Jones-Drew, who is my favorite player of all time. And when I was watching Clyde's tape, the thing that really stood out was that he doesn't do anything that really explodes off the page compared to some of the other running backs. Like J.K. Dobbins just is known for being quick and shifty, right? Jonathan Taylor's just this big muscle back that's just going to bruise you up. But with Clyde was just so well-rounded, but just so consistently solid. He doesn't explode off the page, but he's always going to get the job done. And that's what I thought was really interesting about watching his film. As far as ADP goes, his current ADP is running back 6, going in the first round at 106. So pretty much just right there. Just you're looking at Christian McCaffrey. I blanked on who was going 101. McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and then Clyde. And I have him ranked as running back 5. And I progressively moved him up, especially after the Damian Williams news. I think I moved him up to number 6 or 7, and then I was really looking at those names, right? And I have done some adjustments for my rankings just throughout the offseason, just slowly moving guys up and down. And I ultimately decided to move Clyde to number 5. And the reason why is because I know for a fact Clyde Edwards Helaire is going to get 220 carries, likely, very, very likely. He gets 220 carries. He's going to catch the ball 50, 60 times this season. And I just know that workload is going to be more than Alvin Kamara, who is splitting a backfield in New Orleans. And yes, Kamara is hyper efficient, but one of the things I've been saying here is opportunity matters. And so if you only have Kamara on the field for 65, 70% of the time, but we get Clyde Edwards Helaire, who's on the field 90% of the time, and is in a better offense, even though it's not by much, like the Saints offense still is really good. But the Chiefs are just on another stratosphere, right? So with that being said, I have Clyde at number 5. I have the 4th pick in my family league. That draft is taking place on Wednesday, and there is a legitimate chance that I take Clyde at 4. I know I have Dalvin ranked higher right now. Here's the thing, right? I know for a fact that I will get one of Barkley, Elliott, Dalvin, Clyde, Kamara. But I guess the real question becomes now is for me, I'll say this. If Zeke falls to me at 4, 100% taking Zeke. 100% taking Zeke. I've said it over and over. To me, Zeke is the most consistent fantasy high-end running back in the NFL. I mean, outside McCaffrey, should I say. And then Dalvin, we have injury concerns there. Can he stay healthy? This offense is going to change just a little bit. Not a whole lot, though. And then Clyde, though. Clyde is just this young, shining superstar waiting to happen in the best offense that maybe we've ever seen. So I'm all in on Clyde Edwards Helaire this season and for the rest of his NFL career if he stays in Kansas City. Let's move over to the wide receiver positions, and we had to start off with Tyreek Hill, who is also one of my favorite wide receivers in the league. This team just has a lot of my favorite players on it, or not even, yeah, I guess favorite players on it, because I love Clyde so much. I was thinking when I said that Maurice Jones-Drew, but I'm like, wait, Maurice Jones-Drew has been out of the league for about 4 years now. But anyway, on to Tyreek Hill. He did have a shoulder injury week 1, which really derailed part of his season. He missed the first handful of games because of that injury. He finished as wide receiver 28 in standard, 30 in PPR. He had 5 games as the wide receiver 1, 0 games as the 2, and 1 game as a 3. 89 targets, 58 catches, 860 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 13.3 points per game, on 12 games played. His new finish is wide receiver 10. And that's the reason, again, why we use these adjusted scores, to get a clear representation of what these players do when they're actually on the field, and removing the injury from the equation. Tyreek Hill is so good, so fun to watch, and just an absolute burner. I'm sure you guys probably all know this. And I guess the question for me becomes, when do you draft him? His current ADP is wide receiver 3, going in the early part of the second round, pretty much on the turn. I also have him ranked as wide receiver 3. The thing that's different about Tyreek Hill compared to these other upper echelon wide receivers is that his play style is totally different. He's only going to catch about 75 balls per year, and maybe that number's being a little bit too low, so we'll bump that up to 80. But would you rather have, I want to pull up the wide receiver ADP, but would you rather have Julio Jones, who's going to get 1,400 yards and catch the ball 95 times? Would you rather have Devontae Adams, who can do that exact same thing? Michael Thomas is obviously just kind of on another tier right now, but just Tyreek is a very different type of wide receiver 1. He's just a guy that is going to just have these boom games. There are also going to be games where he lets you down because maybe they just don't need to throw deep at all, or they jump out to an early lead without him, and so he doesn't see a whole lot of involvement. And so it's not, with Tyreek, it's very similar to the Aaron Jones approach. And this is something new that I've been on. I've talked about this a few times already, where I know that if I take Aaron Jones, I need another consistent running back next to him in my lineup, just in case I do get that tank game, right? Because if you're looking at Tyreek Hill and you only see those 5 wide receiver 1 games, that means that, there were, in total, that he had 6 games inside the top 36, but he also then had 6 games outside of the top 36. And that's no fun, right? That's no fun from your number 1 wide receiver. And he kind of fits this bill again with this A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper territory of how you score your points is more important than how many points you score. And so how you construct your roster around him really is what's going to make the difference for your fantasy team, because you can't have Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper in your roster. Like, you can't have both those guys, because if you do, you might doom yourself. You might shoot yourself in the foot, 7 weeks out of the year. And now granted, because let's see. I'm doing the math in my head, right? So essentially what you would need if you were to play those 2 guys in your lineup, you would have to be able to recover from one of them missing a week just entirely, like an outside of the top 36 performance. And maybe they both have 6 games where they just explode. You need to hope that those 6 games are not in the same week. And even then, you need to hope that that one player's boom game will cancel out the lack of production from the other player. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Very, very poorly, might I add, but it's fine. Tyreek Hill, all in all, love him. Fantastic talent, incredible wide receiver. I had him in Dynasty. Let's not get this confused. I love Tyreek so much, I drafted him in the first round of my Dynasty startup. I then traded him for DK Metcalf, Juju Smith-Schuster, and a 2020 second-round pick. More on that in the Dynasty Mega Special. But I love Tyreek Hill so much. He's so talented, so incredible, and he is going to win you weeks. Let's not get that confused. Up next, Sammy Watkins. We're going to make these next 2 really quick because I really don't think there's a whole lot of difference between the 2. Sammy Watkins, another Chiefs wide receiver. He finished as 52 in standard and 51 in PPR. 1 game as a 1, 0 as a 2, 1 game as a 3. 90 targets, 52 catches, 673 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 8 points per game on 14 games played. His new finish is wide receiver 60. I have him ranked as wide receiver 61. His ADP is wide receiver 52, going in the back of the 11th round. It's this simple. Sammy Watkins with Patrick fucking Mahomes could not put up fantasy points. I do not want any part of him this season. We're going to get to this point. Again, we saw it last season with Watkins, Robinson, and Hardman. We're playing roulette here. You are playing roulette because this offense is going to run through Clyde Edwards Helaire, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. Everybody else is an ancillary option, and I'm not interested in any of them. Like, I understand the appeal, right? Like, the Chiefs' offense, it's so sexy. They might score 45 points per game. They have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. I don't care. I do not care. Sammy Watkins is nothing. How do you have 52 catches and you only put up two top 36 games? How do you have 90 targets from Patrick Mahomes and Matt Moore a little bit last season, but with Mahomes' missed game? But regardless, with Patrick freaking Mahomes, and you still only put up 2 games in the top 36. I don't get this. I don't get this. Sammy Watkins, we've wanted him to be so good for fantasy for so long, and maybe he had one good season in Buffalo where I think he finished at wide receiver 14 off the top of my head. But that was it. I'm done with Sammy Watkins. I'm done. I also don't know if I'm done with Mikkel Hardman, and I shouldn't say done because that's not like a definitive statement. Mikkel Hardman, though, second year player for the Chiefs. During his rookie season, he finished at 49 in standard, 56 in PPR, 4 games as a wide receiver 2, 0 games as a 1, and 4 games as a 3, so he went 0-4-4. 41 targets, 26 catches, 538 yards, and 6 touchdowns, 6.7 points per game, all 16 games played. His new finish is wide receiver 69. Dude, I don't understand Mecole Hardman's ADP. His ADP is currently wide receiver 38, going at 809. I am ranked as wide receiver 59, and granted, I know I'm low on him, but I also feel like ADP is super high on him. You are getting more consistent performances from Hardman, 8 games inside the top 36 compared to Sammy Watkins 2. So, like, yes, you are getting more production, but again, this comes down to you playing weekly roulette, and I'm not interested in that this season. So I am going to stay away from Hardman. He is so good, but I think the question that you have to ask yourself, if you plan on starting Hardman, like, you have to be willing to swing and miss. It takes a lot of balls to start Mecole Hardman in your fantasy lineup, even as a flex play, even if it's just something like that low, to where you have the option to start maybe another running back, or you might have a more consistent wide receiver available. If you need that swing for the fence play, and you're going against an absolute juggernaut, I love starting Hardman in that situation. But if you're just playing a standard, typical fantasy matchup, I'd be more adverse to be willing to start him. Wide receiver 59, like I said, I do have him a lot lower than I think he should be, but that ADP is also ridiculous. You're basically having him inside the top 36 as a wide receiver 3. I'm going to pull up who I have at 36. At 36, I have Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Debo, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, Golden Tate, Jamison Crowder, John Brown, Sterling Shepard, and then the rest of the Giants receivers kind of in that range as well. Now he does let's see. I'm looking at my rankings live here. I mean, I have the majority of the rookie wide receivers ahead of him. I have Emmanuel Sanders ahead of him, Alan Lazard ahead of him. Yeah, I don't see how I would move him up. Even just looking at this now, I don't know the world where I would move him up. I just don't like the inconsistency. I don't like the roulette. He's super talented. Like, let's not get that confused. And this is a team that does utilize speed. There was even a report, again, Peter King reiterated, that this team wanted to draft Henry Ruggs, which would have been utterly insane. I'm just not excited about Mecole Hardman this season. He's a guy that I'm willing to be wrong about going into 2020. But let's wrap up this Chiefs preview by talking about Travis Kelce. Again, like Patrick Mahomes, there's not a whole lot to be said. And what I think is actually really funny now that I'm looking at how long I've been recording, I'm approaching 20 minutes now. The reason why I wanted to save this division for last is because I think this is the division that has some of the most action-packed fantasy players on across the division itself. But just starting off with the Chiefs here, it's like Patrick Mahomes, not a whole lot to say. Tyreek Hill, not a whole lot to say. Travis Kelce, not a whole lot to say. He had 13 games as a tight end 1, 2 games as a 2, 1 game as a 3. He finished as the number 1 tight end in both formats, 136 targets, 97 catches, 1,200 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 12.9 points per game. He played all 16 games. His new finish is tight end 1, ADP tight end 1, my rank tight end 1, going at 208. Travis Kelce, I debated, did I want to move George Kittle ahead of Travis Kelce? And I thought about it for a long time, right? Because you have to ask yourself, what's the equation? What do you value more? In my opinion, George Kittle is absolutely the number 1 option in San Francisco. I think that's something that we can all agree on. But is Travis Kelce the number 1 option in Kansas City? Now, that's a little bit of a different story. I don't know. Is this a team that utilizes that run more and uses Clyde Edwards Helaire in a way that we haven't seen them yet, where he's going to get 80 targets? And Travis Kelce having 136. Now, there's some damage there. Tyreek Hill's going to get 90 targets, 110 targets or so. What's Tyreek Hill's target? I need to stop spewing that. What's Tyreek Hill, the most targets he's had in the season. 2018, 137 targets. 2017, 105. Last season, 89. Okay, right. So we're asking ourselves, who is the number 1 option on this team? Is it Travis Kelce or is it Tyreek Hill? And if the answer is Tyreek, then the question becomes, are you comfortable drafting the number 2 option on a team on the best offense in football compared to the number 1 option on a team that is in a different, lower category offensively? To me, I tried to make that case for George Kittle to move him up as to number 1. I just couldn't do it because I'll value the quarterback play more. I need the quarterback that I know can get him the ball and put up points consistently, because touchdowns are such a big thing for tight ends, and I know that Kelce is going to rack up the yardage. I think the funny thing is that both Kelce and Kittle both put up 5 touchdowns last season, and so both of those numbers for each player should go up, but I will take the better offense than the lesser one, naturally, right? This is fantasy. We play off stats and points, and the Chiefs are just going to put up more of those. So I'm going to roll with Kelce still as my number 1. Again, are you comfortable drafting a tight end that early? I never have been. Again, I've tried different draft strategies. One of the things that I thought was actually really interesting, and me and my friend, we did this mock draft the other day, where we tried to see what would happen if we started Clyde Edwards Helaire, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. What does that look like? How can we navigate the board afterwards? And what we ultimately found out was that it was a theory that worked better in concept, than in reality. We felt like that there wasn't enough depth at the running back position later on to try and scoop up, even trying to kind of rebound with our wide receivers, because we didn't have a wide receiver 1 still. That was a little bit of a challenge, and I felt like it hurt our team more than it helped it. But if you are willing to go quarterback early, I guess that also kind of means that you are willing to go tight end early as well. I don't think you can do both. I think if you wanted to do one, you can, but both probably isn't an option for you, because you're going to end up just tanking your team. Having the number 1 tight end, having a top 2 tight end is going to be so, you hear the word positional advantage a lot. I never really considered that as a big reason to draft a tight end this early. But as I was going through some of the numbers for tight ends, oh my goodness, I think I see it now. So you had Travis Kelce who averaged 13 a game. George Kittle also averaged 13 a game. Mark Andrews was 11.4. Zach Ertz was 11.4. Mark Andrews was 11.7. Excuse me. And then Austin Hooper was 11.9. But obviously he's changing teams this season, so it's going to be a little bit different. So you do have these positional advantages. But the thing that I am going to say, just to kind of wrap up this point, is that of these 4 tight ends, and I'm going to say 4 because I do believe that, yes, Kelce and Kittle are in their own category. It's 1A, 1B. You have those 2 guys in 1A, and then Andrews and Ertz in 1B. I'm going to take the one that goes last. I don't want to be the one that reaches first. I've said this about wide receiver pairings on competitive offenses. I'll take the one that goes last. I want to load up at my running back and wide receiver positions, and then I'll be able to spend up to take that tight end once those positions are secure for me. But I think that's going to do it for my Kansas City Chiefs All 32 NFL team preview for fantasy football this season. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. We got 3 more of these to do. And then what content are we bringing after that? I have no fucking idea. I mean, I kind of do. I have a loose plan in my head, but even still, just leading up to the season, I think I'm just going to bring some draft analysis of the teams that I've drafted so far. Like I said, the Dynasty special is coming, and then just whatever kind of content that I want to use to fill the gap all the way until the NFL season, which kicks off September 10th. So once again, thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on all social media platforms. Where's my button? Thank you. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at FFVulture. The website is ffvulture.com. And remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. I'll see you next time. Later.